Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Sean. Today I am doing another installment of Editing Explained, where I go through the list of some of the changes I'm making to my book, Ottoman Destiny. I have already done a couple videos, or maybe one video, no, I think two videos on this book, and this is the next draft. I forget offhand which draft I am on. I believe I am on the 5th draft. So I'm making the 5th draft edits to the book, and I'm going to go through those edits and show you guys the changes I am making and explain why I'm making these changes. What I'm going to be showing you guys is Act 2 and 3 of the book. Okay, here we go, Part 2. He laid waste and multiplied our slain. Now this prisoner lost his mane. I like that opening title. Okay, so here we begin. You could see I've talked about in the previous video, but I just don't generally like words ending with ly, so I got rid of slowly there. I like using she and he instead of names, but for that little section there, she was working. I just wanted to get rid of she was, just because a lot of sentences could begin with she, and also was I think is kind of a passive word, so I just began the sentence with working. Getting rid of unnecessary words is kind of a focus now on this draft, so I'm getting tired. Just got rid of that because it's unnecessary. Then you could see I changed an Ariel to a she. Because I don't like when authors just repeat character names a lot, because to me it sounds like the author is more in love with their character name than I am. Another focus on this draft is getting rid of unnecessary commas. That's kind of something I'm focusing now on my writing because I tend to overuse commas. So you can see those little X marks, those are just getting rid of commas. And you can see I get rid of an Ariel and a Constantine, just changing them to she and him. Up at the top there, I got rid of starting a sentence off with and because I just don't generally like it, even though I notice now I have an and that begins another sentence directly beneath it. I'll see if I get rid of that one as well on the next draft. Then for this next section here, you could see I kind of jumble this paragraph around. So, hi Ariel, a voice said in English. That little line there means that next line is actually going to be the start of a new paragraph. The line after she had forgotten means that space is basically getting deleted. So that becomes a whole paragraph. She had forgotten, feeling disembodied as if blah, 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 all one paragraph. Oh, I don't really know all what I have here, but you can see I changed a she to an Ariel. Wow, I actually did the reverse. Usually I'm changing character names to, but you can also see I have a lot of cut commas here and splice up some sentences. So just making little changes. Got rid of a simply there toward the middle, kind of an unnecessary word I'm trying to get rid of. And then down at the bottom, there's an all the time there that I cut, just because I kind of think it's unnecessary expressions, just to make the pacing a little bit sharper. Man, there's a lot of Constantines here in this page. I didn't notice that before, but I'm seeing it now. So I'll definitely have to try to see if I can clean that up in the next draft. But I don't know, I may go back and fix it this draft. We'll see. I guess I probably will have to fix it in this draft. Just some changes I'm making, just getting rid of a word here or there. Make it a little bit better. This again, beginning a lot of sentences with she or he, so just trying to get rid of it, so halting at the foot of the stairs. I've talked about this before, how I tend to just use walk a lot instead of strolling or whatever. So at the bottom of the page here, you could see started to walk slowly. Again, there's the word slowly. I don't really like that. So leisurely strolled. Even though there is an ly there, I just like it a little bit better than always saying walked and slowly. I've talked about this little section here in one of my previous videos, so you can kind of see the further changes I am making to it, just trying to sharpen it up a little bit. This whole paragraph here, the room containing the Great Turk's deathbed, would be the last place Russell would impugn his name. I realized right here, this line, do you miss Egypt? That was from Alfred, and the previous paragraph also has a line from Alfred, I know where your home is. So I just moved that line, do you miss Egypt, back to the previous paragraph, since it's Alfred speaking in both of those lines of dialogue. Again, here you could see with a slash there as well, slash she quickly. Well, there's a quickly I got rid of. But just slicing up the paragraphs. So move that paragraph, she let him know. Move that to its own paragraph. and then that line, not that I don't want to, that joins the previous paragraph. And then I got rid of a just there because I don't really like the word just. I got rid of a comma after cheek, and then I sliced up the sentence there down at the bottom. And here again, just with my overuse of walking, so she walked away, and then a couple words later, walking slowly. So I just changed that to sauntering. I usually don't do that, but I just really kind of want to avoid walking at this point. I mean, walked, walking, whatever. I kind of overuse it. So in this case, I do kind of want to have alternatives like strolling, sauntering, whatever. Because even though I am pretty fond of just saying, they walked, it can also get overused if that's the only thing I ever say is they walked. This part here, I cut this word here again because this is actually like a news report that they are listening in on. So they just turn on the TV, and what's the first thing the reporter says? Again, we know the president. So this just happens a lot in like fiction and like TV shows and stuff. When characters turn on the TV, at that exact moment the reporter gives like crucial information. So I cut this word again because it just, it's very much that way. Just the characters turn on the TV and the reporter says the most relevant information. So I just cut it. It just felt like that, very much like that trope of turning on the TV and the news just perfectly recaps the latest event. I felt this line here could have been cut, and we had some limited cross-border attacks, because in the next line there's this line, most recently we responded to attacks by whatever. So I realized I could cut that whole line there up above if I just have cross-border attacks mentioned in the next sentence. So most recently we had responded to cross-border attacks. So that way I could basically cut that above line there just by moving, 2 words down to the next sentence. Here in, what are those? They're not parentheses, are they? I guess they're called brackets. In brackets, I have Hagia Sophia, because here, this guy, Beati, the Turkish president, he says Hagia Sophia, which is like the Turkish name for Hagia Sophia. So originally I put brackets in there just to let you know what Hagia Sophia is, because, if you're not Turkish, you're going to read that and just be like, Hagia Sophia, what's that? And there's really not much in here like to contextually tell you what Hagia Sophia is. So, I had the brackets there, Hagia Sophia, but I kind of decided it's just unnecessary. I didn't really like the brackets there because I don't have any brackets like anywhere else in any of my books, I think. So I just decided, even though readers may kind of at this point, not quite know what Hagia Sophia is, they may not like make that connection that it's Hagia Sophia. I just really didn't like brackets there, so they should learn soon enough, if they don't pick it up just contextually or whatever, that it's Hagia Sophia. In like an upcoming chapter, maybe the next chapter, I kind of make it more clear that they're talking about Hagia Sophia there. So I just got rid of the brackets. I didn't like them. Right there, you could see I have capitals okay. That just lets me know, I crossed out that word down. And I did put back there, but just in the line above it, you can see I have another use of back there. But back to the point at hand. So I realized if I would have changed down to back, I would have had 2 backs in the same sentence or whatever. So that'd just be repetition. So I decided, well, you know what? Down is not that bad there. I'd rather have it be down than to have repetition of back. Right here, you can see I changed this, circle this name. Thank you, baby. Right here, I circle this name, General Muhammad Akar, because like the actual Minister of Defense, Turkish Minister of Defense, I think, is named Akar. So I realized, I can't just have a different first name for the guy, because it's the same last name as the real life Minister of Defense. So I just changed it to Sandkar, which is really not very much different of a name. So what I'll do is I'll just like word search and replace all the uses of Akar with Sandkar instead. And then you could see I've written in smaller there. That's because the font here, it's just quite a bit larger than the regular font. Because this is a section where, it's something in different font because the character is reading it through an email. So this is an email font basically. But it really looks, quite larger than the rest of the font for the book. So I think I could just lower it from like 12 point font to 10, just so I think it'll look a little bit better. And at the bottom there, these numbers are only estimates. I realized I could get rid of only there because, it's just an unnecessary word. These numbers are estimates. These numbers are only estimates. It's a completely unnecessary word. And also, in the middle there, these bombing struck key border locations. I realized I had another use of key somewhere, right lower down, like 4 lines. Our initial target was to capture key border checkpoints. So I realized just repetition of key, so just figured which one I wanted to keep more and cut the first one. Up at the top there, beyond what we were initially planning to take, and again, just unnecessary, what we were planning to take, what we were initially planning to take, just unnecessary. And here you can see what I was talking about with the font. It just looks a bit too large, so lower the size of the font. Up at the top there, barred bus window. I realized I could just get rid of bus because the next line says, the white prison bus. So, the first one I realized is just kind of repetition. And this is also like a small detail, because this is like a, thank you, baby. This is a small detail, but this is describing it like a Turkish prison. And so I kind of wondered, like, what do Turkish prison buses actually look like? So I looked up, like, on Google Maps. I zoomed in for different prisons in Turkey, and I looked at buses, and I saw that their prison buses in Turkey are white. So I saw that using Google Maps. So just like a real small detail that I just wanted to get right. So yes, I looked on satellite. Turkey has white prison buses. So I wanted to use that. You can see that little cross there I got rid of an ellipses or an ellipsis or whatever. I hope you didn't hear that. I just didn't really need, the 3 periods there. Then you see I got rid of another line there. I'm not Turkish, and then just cut that space and cut that next line. Oh yeah, because I just realized that's dialogue does not add anything to the book whatsoever. Oh yeah. So none taken. I'm not Turkish. I found your friend. It's all one line. Just getting rid of unnecessary words. 2 full days, didn't need full. In a small cell, didn't need small. Just 3, I don't like just very much. And then down there, kind of toward the bottom, you can see I just moved that line into the previous paragraph. Right here, I changed this part because I think it just ends the sentence stronger. So how much of your car was left? Was left kind of seems like passive there. Like it seems like a weak end to a sentence. Was left. So I think it's stronger to switch it around. How much was left of your car? Question mark. So I think it's a lot better to end the sentence or question with car rather than left. How much of your car was left? How much was left of your car? I just think it reads better. And then again, you could see, I crossed out the and there because I was going to say then, and then I decided for whatever reason I liked and instead. So I just cut that to let you know that all that crossed out stuff, to basically forget that. What I have there originally is okay. So the and stays. Part 3, ships from Kitim come to ruin. Kitim was like the biblical name of Cyprus, which is where Act 3 is set. Right here in the middle, looking back, she saw Gaines, the engineer. I decided to cut that part, the engineer, because, I have a lot of characters in my books, and even though I have a cast of characters at the end, so, readers could go and check, who's Gaines again, and they could see, it'll say, he's an engineer on the ship, but I just didn't really want to unnecessarily have reminders in the book when I could just remind readers elsewhere. So, a couple lines down, then back at the crew worker, I just changed that to chief engineer because, originally when I wrote that, crew worker, it may have been some, random person. Maybe I didn't know who it was. It was just a random crew worker. But, since I decided, it's actually Gaines in this case, this character Gaines, I could just move that line, the engineer, down to, chief engineer. So that reminds readers that Gaines is the chief engineer. So I don't know, it just seems to me to be a little bit better. Looking back, she saw Gaines, period. Instead of reminding readers at that moment, the engineer. She saw Gaines, the engineer. In 2 lines, you're going to see that it says the chief engineer. So you're going to find out Gaines is the chief engineer. Anyway, I talked way too much about that. I'm sorry. I over-explain things. At the top of the page, you see this line, Beati made silent contact with an advisor. At the time, maybe I didn't know exactly what that advisor's name would be. But, down, further on as I wrote the book, I actually decided on, a name for the guy and who that advisor is. So down at the very bottom of the page, you see the name Tanner Tufekci. So I just moved that up to the very top of the page. So Beati made silent eye contact with Tanner Tufekci, an advisor who was an expert on the United States. Whoa, oh my goodness, look at all this. So I do not think I'm going to go through all of this, but this just shows you. Oh, actually, I will go through all this. So right here, I'm having, the Turkish president is talking about they're talking about how all these different nations are reacting to their possible invasion of Cyprus. And so what I decided to have here is actually talk more about what Saudi Arabia thinks, because the next Trevor Knight book is set in Saudi Arabia. And in fact, this character, this foreign minister, Kiran is his name. You can see his name there, Kiran went on Syria is adamant against our operations. So Kiran actually appears in the next book, which is Arabian Dawn. And, there's this whole scene where this foreign minister of Turkey meets with this emir of Qatar. And so I kind of decided, I could kind of set that scene up in a way in this scene here in Ottoman Destiny. So in this little section here, they talk, kind of all about Saudi Arabia. And so, yeah, it's both setting up the next book, and it's also going to be a callback in the next book, Arabian Dawn, when these characters are talking. So it's just kind of a nice way of, having references to each book. Because when I wrote this book, I wasn't absolutely sure when I was writing it that the next book would be in Saudi Arabia. But, I finished this book and then I began working on the next book, and I've actually finished the next book, Arabian Dawn. I'm editing it right now. So I just thought it'd be cool, right here, they could talk about Saudi Arabia, because I know they're going to go to Saudi Arabia in the next book. This minister guy is going to go to Saudi Arabia. So anyway, I just thought it'd be cool to kind of have some stuff here talking about Saudi Arabia. So it's kind of a neat way to set up the next book. Oh, and also you can see kind of in the middle of all the red ink there, I mentioned the defense minister is named Bandar. So yeah, that's a character from Arabian Dawn. So I actually name him here. So it's just kind of a cool way to do this. You know how I've already written the next book, but because of that, that allows me to go back into this book, Ottoman Destiny, and add in things that are, going to have payoffs in the next book. So it's just kind of cool to do that. I don't really want to explain it all because I just over-explain it, but you can see I circled this part here, wobble depend on its end. So, I decided to move that up to the previous paragraph or whatever. Beati wobble depend on its end. Remind her. I decided to actually cut him swearing there because somewhere else later in this book, I say that, basically the president swears and he rarely swears. So because of it, I realized, even though I kind of like having him swear there just to reiterate that this is not a good guy, he looks down on women or whatever. Later in the book, I kind of, say that, he rarely swears. So it would kind of be out of character for him to swear in this moment. So, even though Beati is kind of the villain and I don't want to make him look good, I just have kind of already established that in his character, he avoids profanity generally. So I thought it'd be better just to avoid it here in this case. So he just says, remind her instead of swearing. So it's kind of a rare case of actually making the villain less evil in a way because, I've established, he's kind of doesn't swear a lot. And, that paragraph there, he wobbled a pen on its end and stared upward. I kind of wanted to get rid of a lot of that. But, I kind of just decided I could use that little action there. He wobbled a pen on its end. I don't know, it doesn't like add anything to his character or whatever, but I just kind of like the little gesture there. And, I could use it in place of having said. So, Beati wobbled a pen on its end instead of saying Beati said, because Beati said could kind of get repetitive in a way. So I have the action there instead. Beati wobbled a pen on its end, and then just proceed with the dialogue. And I do that, Beati wobbled a pen on its end, because that way that'll let you know who is going to be speaking the next line. So when it says, remind her that there are, you're going to know, thank you, baby, you're going to know it's Beati because of that line. Beati wobbled a pen. Again, this is Sean over-explaining things. Here you could see I have this problem where on the right side of the page there, there's that little line there that I've, actually what I've done is I circled that line and I move it to the previous page basically because I'm having this problem with like the layout of these words. I talk about it in one of my previous editing videos where, thank you, baby. I have this little part here. Thank you, baby. I have this little part here where, it's step, 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 step. Because in Walter Moore's, thank you, baby. In Walter Moore's book, 13 and a Half Lives of Captain Blue Bear, Walter Moore's does the same thing where this like giant spider creature is like approaching the characters. And he has this thing where like the font gets bigger, step, step, step. So I wanted to use that in one of my books as well. But anyway, so this little line here, I don't even know if you can read it, but the line on the right side of the page, I think it's just kind of making it difficult for this like font to appear the way I want it to appear on the page. Like you have that step, 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 it's getting bigger, but then you have that real small line there, which I circled. It's not really working out right. I don't know exactly how to fit this all on the page the way I want it to go. So basically, Sean over explaining things again, what I'm doing here is I circled that little line there and I'm just going to move that to the previous page. Oh, so that line is into the same room as her. The line I circled there on the right. So on the left side of the page, you can see the footsteps stopped at the door, then came into the workshop, into the same room as her. So yeah, that's what I do. I just move that line to the end of that paragraph. So hopefully some way I'll be able to like get those words on the right side of the page to make them look the way I want them to look. So again, so sorry, Sean over explaining things. Oh, and by the way, you could see Simon in this picture, just lazing about on the floor. Again, I mentioned it earlier in this video, but I don't really like, words ending in ly, but also I think it just kind of sounds weak ending a sentence with that. So Gokhan said sharply versus Gokhan sharply said. I think it just reads a lot better. Gokhan sharply said, period. But if it says Gokhan said sharply, that just sounds really weak. I am actually like showing you guys this because I love this part. So I'm just going to read it. Trevor is kind of like, talking to Kate, like, trying to kind of hook up with her, like, hey, maybe we should get together. Maybe we should marry. So she turned from him. I'm not doing it. I'm not opening myself to getting my heart broken by you. Every time I've tried, it's ended tragically. She looked over her shoulder at him every time. So you'll never love anyone? She turned, walked up to him, and took his hand. I won't love you. You'll only break my heart. I just love that line so much. So you'll never love anyone? I won't love you. Oh, it just gives me the chills, kind of. I don't know, this whole book, or, kind of the series in a way, it kind of has a feeling, hopefully, of like, friends to enemies or enemies to lovers for them. So, I mean, I kind of always want to play around with this idea, hopefully, like, are they going to wind up together or not? So, I just really love this line here, I won't love you. Oh my goodness, here again you could see a lot of changes I'm making. I do not think I will go through any of them. Right here I have this part where they're talking about like, operators of the F-4, which is a military jet. And, originally at the bottom there you can see I listed a few countries like Greece, the United States, and Israel. But I decided I wanted to look into like who actually operated the F-4 jet at the time that this book is set. So I looked it up and I saw which countries operate the F4. So I just kind of made that change, into the book. So, South Korea, Japan, Egypt, I mentioned every country that actually did operate the F4 jet at this time. So just a little bit of research. And again, here you could see just a lot of changes I'm making to the book. I won't go through them all though. And here are yet some more changes. Again, I'm not going to... Oh, actually, I will go through this. So here you can see I have like Trevor. Again, he's like trying to kind of, get her to, maybe we should hook up and, let's just go off, you and me. Maybe we should get married. And so, Trevor here is like talking all this stuff, and, they're kind of going back and forth, option A, and she doesn't go for that. So then he's like, okay, option B, and then she doesn't go for that, But it just really felt very wordy, all this option A, option B, option C, So I just really didn't like it. I do like this like back and forth dialogue they have with each other. I like their interaction here. But I thought all this crap about like option A, option B, that was just getting in the way. So I really like, their banter here. But yeah, so I just wanted to get rid of that because, this it could be a very important moment for them. They're talking about, maybe we should hook up. And I didn't want to have this real stupid, corny option A stuff interrupting all of it. And again, there at the bottom, she says, I'm not marrying you, Trevor. Not now. Not ever. Not unless after 10 years of constantly badgering me, you finally wear me down enough to say yes. 10 years of constant badgering, you say? I should not have said that. That's kind of a Harry Potter reference with, what's his name? I should not have said that. Here you could see mainly there's this line here, taxing away from the gate. I just felt, I don't know, this whole part, it's just kind of a lot of unnecessary actions. So you can see like towards the top there, their hands met, and then it says, they at some point, they let go of each other. Then they saw the plane taxiing away and their hands joined together again. It is just, they took hands and then they let each other's hands go and then they took hands again. And it was just kind of too much, I think. So I kind of wanted to cut down on it. So I moved, this line up, taxiing away from the gate. So, hopefully they should just grab or take each other's hands once. So I don't know, just trying to make it a little less confusing. I don't want to go through this, but you can see I'm just, changing the paragraph ing here and just cutting some unnecessary words and changing around sentences, and yeah. I'm not going to go through all of them. Here at the top of the page, you can see, I have this, 3 lines here. His lips started to move, but he couldn't decide on what to say. So her lips, she started to move. But right before she elected on saying anything, there's 3 lines there. So I decided to just sharpen it up. Before either of them could decide on what to say or do next or whatever, they heard a male speak. So it just cuts it down, from 3 lines to maybe just 1. I've already talked about this in another video. I have this problem with like, the pagination or whatever, and it's like it's something dealing with section breaks, but I did figure it out. So I don't really have this problem anymore. So I'm not going to go into that here. But, I have this line that begins the next chapter, the shutting of a car door brought Knight quickly out of sleep. I wanted to get rid of that quickly there. But I didn't just want like brought him out of sleep, so I thought it'd be good there just to say shocked Knight out of sleep. Right here I have this line, they're at like a mortician's home and, these people go in to like bring a body out. Actually, when I wrote this, I was kind of quite undecided on whether like, they bring him on like a gurney or if they like have him on a body bag, or if they're, whatever, how they exactly are transporting this corpse. I hadn't really decided when I wrote the book, so I think it's kind of mixed up a little bit. But, here in this part, it says they, the soldiers come out carrying the begged corpse on a stretcher. But I looked up, how much does a person actually weigh after they are embalmed? Because I was wondering, like, would they be lighter or would they be heavier? And I found out that, when you're embalmed, you gain pretty much like 150 pounds or so. So yeah, you would definitely be heavier. So, a 150 pound person probably weighs, 300 pounds or more after they're embalmed. So I changed it to, they put him on a gurney and wheel him off. And I wasn't sure if he should be in like a body bag or not, so I decided to just have him be in a metal coffin. Oh, and here you could see there's like several justs I cut. Just overuse of the word just. And did I seriously just say just overuse of the word just? Obviously, I overuse the word just. But I don't want to do it in my books because that's just like poor editing. I should catch these things in the editing process. So I'm not so concerned if I write them, when I'm writing, just because it's a word I overuse a lot. But when I'm editing, I want to get rid of those things because they're unnecessary. And here's some more just example of, edits I'm making. I'm not going to go through them all. Here again, I kind of had to apologize for the profanity. But, there's this line about, the goddamn Russians, Knight said. I actually realized in the previous book, I think, there's a line where Trevor's boss basically says that exact same line that I have there, about the Russians. But here Knight is saying it. But I kind of decided, that is more a line that, Samuel Decker, his boss, said. I mean, almost verbatim. So I didn't really want Trevor saying the exact same thing because also it's just not really quite in line with his character. So I think it works just as well for Trevor to say, screw the Russians, instead of having that profanity there. And also at this point, Trevor is kind of an unlikable character in a way at this point, I think. So I just didn't really want to have him swearing there just because it seems really, really to me like, I do not like Trevor. So, I kind of just wanted to get rid of him swearing there because it's also just, not really too much in his character. So he just says, screw the Russians. Here, this is a real serious moment between Trevor and Kate. So, I kind of want to make it as concise as possible because I think, when characters are having like real serious conversation, if you have like unnecessary words or unnecessary sentences, that could kind of ruin it. So it should be like real punchy. Each line of dialogue should have a lot of weight. And if you have like just unnecessary words, unnecessary phrases, unnecessary sentences, it's going to ruin what could be a very tense, scene, very emotional scene. So the dialogue should be like absolutely punchy, just very much to the point, no fluff really, just bam, 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 with the dialogue, real sharp. So I'm not going to go through all of the changes I'm making here, but yeah, I'm just trying to make sure the dialogue there is as efficient as possible. Here, I have this line where like Gokhan opens his computer and he just had a meeting with like the president of Cyprus, and so he opens his computer and like has one of his drones follow the president of Cyprus. So originally, when I wrote that, I thought, maybe they're going to, wind up doing a drone strike against him or something. Or maybe they like send a special forces team to like capture this president because they're, about to go to war with Cyprus. But that never winds up happening. So I decided this whole little part here where he goes on his laptop and has one of his drones like follow the Cyprus president. Nothing ever comes of that, so it's a completely dead end for a plot. So I decided that whole part there to just cut that. So, it says, he waited for the president to leave the room before walking downstairs with Rojas and out the back door. So, yeah, just that whole section there gets cut because nothing ever comes of it. Completely an unexplored, undeveloped storyline or whatever. Here, I made a mistake, Kirhan Melhi, and I circled that because I kind of realized when I was like writing it, I was like, wait a minute, I thought his last name was Kiran because I actually talked about him earlier in the video. And so, yeah, right here, I messed up the names. And what I probably did when I like wrote this is I probably like went to the cast of characters to pull up his name, and in the cast of characters it mentions last name first. So what I did is I probably copied and pasted Kieran Melhi or whatever, and I just pasted it. So it was his last name first, and it shouldn't have been. But when I was editing the book this time, I caught it. So, I have this note here, search both names to see if there are any other mistakes. So yeah, I'll just do a word search for Kieran and Melhi to make sure I don't do the same thing, And then further down on the page, you see, same way, check if people first or last name him. Because the president there, I think it's the president there, Beati spoke in a flat tone. He calls him Kieran, and that's his last name. So if he's going to call him by his first name, hey David, hey, James, whatever, his first name is Melhi. So I just want to go through and make sure, whether people call him Melhi or whatever his name is, or Kieran, whether they first or last name him. Right here in the middle of the page, you see there's that line, Osman, who had gone briefly from the room. You can see at the top of the page there, that whole line or whatever is from Osman. So at one point, Osman was in the room, and then, a couple paragraphs down here, Osman, who had gone briefly from the room. You never actually saw him leave the room or whatever. So I decided to just add that in. So that line of or not dialogue, but the line in red there toward the right side of the page, that actually will say Osman briefly leaves the room or whatever. That's not what it says, but I mean that's basically what it says there to the right. So yeah, I added a part there where you actually see him leave the room for a moment, and then at the middle of the page here, Osman returned and said. Yeah. So again, that's just a long roundabout way of saying, I had that line, saying he had briefly gone from the room, but we never saw him leave the room. So it just seemed kind of awkward. So I just wanted to fix that. This line here at the bottom of the page, I wanted to add this because this is kind of setting up the 7th book in the series. This is book 4, Ottoman Destiny, but book 7 is basically this big invasion of Israel. So everything is kind of leading to this invasion of Israel that is going to happen. So right here, this is the Egyptian president speaking here. And so what I wanted to do is I just kind of wanted to throw in this line here at the end of this paragraph where he kind of goes on a tirade against Jews because, Egypt is going to wind up invading Israel in that book, Atlantis Dislodged. So I kind of wanted to have it here just to kind of, set up, more that, for all these characters, Egypt and Turkey and whatever, they kind of have a major grudge against Israel, So Israel is kind of I don't know how to say it exactly, but, everything is kind of leading toward Israel. So I just wanted to have a reference here about Israel and Jews. Just to kind of reiterate that to these characters, Jews are the real enemy. So even though there's all this other stuff going on with Cyprus in this book, the president of Egypt is kind of, here he goes on a tirade, it's really the Jews are the ones who we need to deal with, essentially is what he is saying. And I've talked about it a couple times earlier in the video, but Knight said sourly versus Knight sourly said. I just think it sounds better. And here, I guess I'll show you guys. This is just something I really like. In Syrian Dander, the previous book, Kate Creed has this thing where she gives Trevor a list of things she needs. And it's just, all this kind of weird stuff. Some of it is medical stuff, but other stuff is witchcraft related stuff because Kate is a witch. She is Wicca, Wicca religion or whatever. And so in Syrian Dander, Kate gave this real weird list to Trevor. And so here in this book, Ottoman Destiny, she does the same thing. She's on this Turkish military base, helping them with medical efforts. And so she gave them pretty much, a very similar list of what she gave Trevor. So it's just kind of a reference to Syrian Dander. And yeah, I just love it. And I did add some things for sure. So it's not the exact same list from before. But yeah, so it's kind of a nice callback to Syrian Dander. And what I've also done is earlier in this book, Trevor actually refers to that list that Kate gave him. So even if readers did not read Syrian Dander, they should kind of have an idea that, this is the same kind of crazy list that Kate gave Trevor, and now she is giving it to the Turks. And so, I don't know, I just loved it. I loved using this like reference again to Syrian Dander. And also, that line at the very bottom, do you know of any rowan trees on the island? In Syrian Dander, Kate says something like, I also need rowan, but I'll need to find out myself. And Trevor's like, why? And so Kate says, like, I need to offer the tree libations. And Trevor's like, libations? And so Kate says, a drink. I need to give the tree a drink. And so, yeah, so in this part here, I have the line, do you know of any rowan trees on the island? So if you've read Syrian Dander, you'll know the reason Kate asks that is because what she would do is she would go to the tree herself to like pour water on it before taking a piece of the tree. So it's just a nice reference to Syrian Dander. I love putting that in here. I think it's real funny. And here, the main thing I want to show you guys is like Trevor has this line here toward the bottom. Could use a Game Boy if anyone has one. Dr. Henry Jekyll. I have that because like Trevor has a tablet here. They're like all these lines here are communicated through this tablet. And so earlier when he's given the tablet, he sets his name up as Enrique Claudine, which is the like character name from the film Phantom of the Opera. And that is actually a reference to Egyptian Demise, book 2 in the series, when Trevor and Dahlia, another character, watch the film Phantom of the Opera. So earlier in this book, just a few pages before this, Trevor has his username as Enrique Claudine, which is a reference to Phantom of the Opera, which is a reference to Egyptian Demise. But anyway, then he changes his name because Kate, complains to him. She says, change your name, Trevor. So he changes it to Dr. Henry Jekyll. And I do that because Kate has her name as Dr. Kate Creed, and, they kind of argue about that because, Trevor's like, why do you have to put, Dr. Kate Creed? Why can't you just say Kate Creed? But anyway, so here Trevor, he changed his name to Dr. Henry Jekyll because, Trevor is kind of insecure about her being a doctor and him just being Mr. So he did Dr. Henry Jekyll. And so anyway, gosh, I explain things way too much. So could use a Game Boy if anyone has one, Dr. Henry Jekyll. Dr. Henry Jekyll is now Mr. Hyde. So he changed his name again, which is kind of great, I think. Dr. Henry Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, Jekyll and Hyde. Kate says, oh my God, stop with the names. And then Mr. Hyde is now Samus Aran, which is the protagonist from Metroid. And Trevor is also kind of a gamer, because in Syrian Dander, he mentions like playing Command and Conquer. So also, he says, could use a Game Boy if anyone has one. In Egyptian Demise, he is actually playing a Game Boy and he's playing Tetris. So Trevor evidently wants to play Tetris again. So this is all kind of just, references within references, so the above thing on the previous image, I shown you guys, the thing from Syrian Dander, the list of all the ingredients. So here again, it's kind of references to, Trevor being a gamer and he wants a Game Boy, he wants to play Tetris. And he changes his name to Samus Aran, Metroid. These are things I just find really amusing. I make myself laugh. Here, this part, the next day, the morning before the invasion, I realized, I was quite confusing with my narrative because I kept saying like, 72 hours before the invasion, a day and a half before the invasion, the day before the invasion, the night before the invasion, the morning of the invasion, whatever. So I was just kind of confusing myself with like the chronology of everything. So I just changed this part here to just later that day. So anyway, I just really wanted to make it less confusing, so just later that day, whatever. There you could see just a lot of changes I'm making to the book. Right here, I decided to change or move this line, where are you from, to the bottom of the paragraph, because I kind of have a little bit of a lengthy paragraph here. And so, the next line there is Dalman, which is, the character answering Kate's question, where are you from? But I kind of figure since there's kind of a little bit of a long-ish paragraph there, if I just have that line, Delman, readers may be like, what's that line mean? Why is that there? What's that have to do with anything? So, I just realized, move that line, where are you from, to the end of the paragraph. So, whatever, to bolster his spirits. Where are you from? Delman. So, yeah, just to make it a bit easier to follow. Right here, I decided to get rid of like a lot of these like village or town names. Right there you see I have like near Denizili, because I added maps to my book, and so like I have a map of Cyprus with like all the locations that are named in the act. So if you see a town name listed, you could look at the map and see where that town is. But I have this section here where they kind of mention a lot of towns, so make a landing near Denizili, but you don't see that on the map, and I don't really want to add it, and also because it just doesn't appear in the book at all. I mean, this is like the only reference in the book to that town. So I decided just to cut it because it's not listed on the map of the book. So I just didn't want it. So any kind of town that is mentioned that is not listed on the map, I kind of wanted to get rid of it if I could. So, I just say, like, instead of landing at this town, I just say, landing at the western end of the island or whatever. Right there in the middle of the page, you could see if he let it go, it could kill whatever. I wanted to move that up because I had that line there. He replayed seeing the missile being fired and thought about whatever. But when I read that, he replayed seeing the missile being fired. I thought, he actually literally, basically, he was looking at this drone screen, like drone footage, and he saw like this missile shoot, whatever. So I thought, if I had that line there, he replayed, seeing the missile being fired. I thought it literally meant like he replayed footage of seeing the missile being fired, which was not what happened. What I meant to say was like just in his head, he replayed in his head, seeing the missile being fired. But it was just really unnecessary and just confusing. So I kind of wanted to get rid of all of it. So I just take the line here that I wanted to keep. If he let it go, it could kill, whatever. And I just moved that up to the above paragraph just to make it less confusing. And here there's like these actions or whatever, where he's like massaging his brow, or he's sitting down, or he's standing up or whatever. And I just didn't really like those kind of actions there. So I just kind of cut them just to make the book a little bit more concise. Oh, one thing I have not talked about in this video is I'm getting rid of a lot of contractions, like the smile she'd been fighting to suppress. I don't really like contractions so much in narration. I think it does sound better to say the smile she had been fighting to suppress. There are still some cases where I will use contractions in narration, but generally I think it just sounds better to say like would have instead of would have or whatever. I think it's better to save contractions for dialogue, like that line, "You're a dreamer," instead of "You are a dreamer." And also, something about these characters, both of these characters are meant to be real smart, Kate Creed and Gokhan, real kind of intelligent characters. So I think intelligent characters, at least in this case, I think they should be able to convey information real plainly, real simply. So if they are using like a lot of unnecessary words, I don't know, to me it just kind of interrupts their like intellectual conversation. So they should be able to have real punchy, short dialogue where they like concisely share the most vital information. So as much as possible, I kind of want to get rid of unnecessary words for them. And here again, you could see just a lot of changes I'm making to the book. And that is actually it for all of the edits. So thank you guys for watching. What I plan to do next is I'll do, I think, Act 4 and Act 1 edits for the next video, since I began like this draft of the book with editing Act 2 and Act 3. So for the next editing explained video for Ottoman Destiny, I'll do Act 4 and then Act 1, and that'll be it for my edits of the 5th draft. And then for the 6th draft of the book, if I do any videos for that, I'll begin the book on the 3rd act. So anyway, that is it. I am sorry for over-explaining things in this video, but I mean, it is called Editing Explained, but I know I'm over-explaining things. I'm sorry. I apologize. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hope to see you again in another video. Bye. So give you guys a quick look through of the entirety of Act 2 and 3. I don't know, it looks pretty good to me. Looks like, you know, somewhere around 7, 8 corrections per page, which to me I like, because to me every little change should make it that much better. Nibbler, my boy. Oh, there's the parakeet. Hi, Drizzle. Nibbler, honey. Give me a kissy. Thank you, baby. Thank you, baby. My baby. Thank you, baby. Give them a kiss.
2, 3, 4.